Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Shannon. This is Made by Boo and I have a lot of projects to talk about today. I have 4 finished objects. I have 4 works in progress. I have 2 projects I'm thinking about starting. So I've got finished objects, things I'm working on, and kind of some project planning. And I actually have a decent variety of projects. I know a lot of times it's just knitting, but even just in my finished objects, I have knitting, crochet, and spinning. And then I also have a little bit of cross stitch to talk about today. So we have quite a bit to get into. Let me just start off with my first finished object. This is a skein of hand spun yarn. So I actually do have a label for this one. So this one is from Boss Kitty and it is her floof base. So it's 100% BFL wool fiber and the color was Reborn in Fire. Let's see if I can pronounce things today. So it has got some purple, some red, and some yellow. I'm pretty sure that the Reborn in Fire is a specific reference to something, but I just thought it looked really pretty and sunsetty. It's just one skein, so I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. But it was pretty and I enjoyed working on it. So I did take the braid, and I split it into 4 and then just did them one after another and then plied it back on itself. So it's nothing really fancy or anything, no fractal, no any sort of fancy plying. It was just a nice, fun spin. It's all the spinning I have today is this one finished one. And again, I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I end up with a lot of these where I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they were so pretty and so enjoyable to work on. One of these days, I'm going to have to figure out a way to put them all into like one big project, but today is not that day, so we shall see. The next finished object I have, I should not have put my hair back for this, is a Musselburgh Hat. So this one was using Evergreen Yarn Studio. The color is 90s Kid and it is on her Pacific sock base. So that it is 100% extra fine superwash merino and it was a 1-ply. So I know it says sock, but I didn't have confidence in the durability of a 1-ply sock. And I mean, even just carrying it around while making the hat, it felt delicate to a point. So this is why I realized I should not have put my hair back. I'm going to just go ahead and apologize if my hair is crazy the rest of this video and try it on. So I don't know. I don't wear a lot of hats and my hair is part of the problem why I don't. I feel like there's no great place to put my hair. So I mostly wear them if I have to be outside for a while. But I mean, even like, we're expecting the winter to be pretty bad this year. I live in Idaho. I've heard Idaho is supposed to have a decently bad winter. It did not get as hot as it normally would for a sustained time this summer. So I think that's part of why we're expecting it to be a really bad winter. I'm hoping it won't. But because it's supposed to be a really bad winter, maybe I'll end up wearing this more. But most of the time I'll go out and I'll like shovel snow on my driveway and it's like I'm not going to be out there long enough to even worry about the hat. So I'm not a big hat person. But it is something that I can use to use up some of those single skeins. And you never know, I might actually decide this time to wear it more. So I like it. I love the colors. And I'm planning on trying to use it more this winter than I normally do with hats. But we shall see. Because it's hard to know. I could just always go to put it on and then decide, nope, not today. The next finished object I have is a blanket. So this is the Yorkshire Crochet Along blanket. I'm so happy that this is done. Not like there's anything wrong with like the project or anything, just I did not entirely expect it to be done. So the squares are using the 2024 Advent Calendar from FanGirl Fibers. This was her Haunted Holidays. And then this border is from Cascade Heritage. I do not remember the color name. It was a thing. We'll get into it in a minute. So if you've never done the Yorkshire Crochet Along blanket, it is based off of living in Yorkshire, and just all the different squares have something to do with the area of Yorkshire, England. She definitely gives the story in the pattern way better than I could condense here, but there's 12 different squares or square designs that each tell a story, and they're all teaching new techniques, and I mean, they're a lot of fun. They're definitely more complex than I would normally pick, and so I'm not sure that I would ever do this pattern again. I know some people have. I didn't hate it. I tend to pick simpler projects a lot of the time, especially with my crochet, where it's like, I'm doing this because I just want to go. I don't want to think. I don't want complex things. I have a job that I have to think about decently when I'm there. I have multiple children in the house, a cat, a dog, a husband. Things that take too much brain power, I feel like I get distracted and then I tend to put them off. I did choose not to do the border flares, partially just because I didn't want to. I really didn't have a very good reason for it. I just didn't want to. So with the border color, I had seen other people had used or had purchased 5 to 6 skeins of the same yarn to join the squares and do the border. And these are people who also did not do the little border flares. So I was like, well, I don't remember if they said they did 5 or 6. I'm going to order 7. Because that way, if I need that extra, like if they said 6 and I need just that little bit extra, I have it. I used 2. I have 5 skeins of this brown left over. So I was a little bummed about that, not because I don't like it. I think it's a very pretty tan. It'll make a really great neutral top of some sort, but it was just like I was not intending to basically have a sweater's quantity of fingering weight yarn left over when I was done with this. And so I instantly was like, well, I could make a quick t-shirt, I could make a shrug, I could possibly make a shrug and a t-shirt. And then I decided I'm just going to hold on to it for a little bit. I'm not going to tell myself I have to use it today. Partially because Little Wolf Knits is doing a fingering weight version of her G Street sweater, and that might be a really good option for this, where it's like, ooh, that's a fingering weight sweater, with it being, it's a garter stitch sweater, so there is a little bit of variation in the stitch. It was like, you know, maybe I'll just wait and see if I want to do that. I'm not going to pressure myself to pick a project for it right away. Maybe I'll wait and do a completely different project that's like a cardigan. I mean, with it being this nice, like, tan, it's a pretty tan to me. Like, it's not an ugly brown or anything. Somewhere between a tan and a khaki, but also pretty. I don't know. I feel like it would make a very good neutral piece, so I don't want to rush what it is. But yeah, I definitely did not expect to end up with as much leftovers as I did. But at least I ended up with leftovers in a color I like. And again, it'll make a nice neutral piece when I choose what it is. So there is always that. Okay, so my last finished object, I almost stopped and fixed my hair real quick when I was moving stuff around. And then I realized if I'm going to try this on, I shouldn't bother. So this is some hand spun yarn I blended a pack that I had once received of a bunch of different shades of green, and it had like one thing of brown, and I blended it all together with some sari silk remnants. If you ever blend yarn together, you've probably seen it where it's all this bright color and you just blend it in and it gives these little bright speckles. So when I last showed this, I was on a sleeve with this sleeve, and I was this far away from the end. I'm pretty sure it was the second sleeve that I showed you last time. That sounds right. It could have been the first sleeve. I'm feeling very confused. Either way, it has 2 sleeves right now. And then on the bottom, I was here. So this is technically the Little Wolf Knits G Street sweater pattern. I weighed my yarn, I planned my yarn, and I thought that I was going to have enough to make a full-size sweater. I did not. So I instead made myself a shrug. This is the second time this year I have tried to make myself a sweater using hand-spun yarn, and I do not know what I am doing wrong, but it is never as much as I think I have. Every single time I'm like, no, that's definitely enough, and then it's not enough. So I am telling myself that I'm going to be happy with this as a shrug. I'm hoping I'm genuinely happy with this as a shrug because it's a nice thick, it is a DK weight sweater. And so it's thick and it's squishy, and as a shrug, I'm slightly afraid that if I needed something DK weight, I would also, want belly coverage, not just arm coverage. But it was one of those where it's like, no, I refuse to have another hand-spun sweater type project this year. Not finished. We're doing this. So, trying it on. We'll see how well you can see. Ooh, sorry guys. It definitely feels a little thick, of course, and I do slightly worry that I made the sleeves a little short. This is, I want to say it was a merino, but I blended it and spun it so long ago, I don't remember. I'm really bad about making labels for my hand spun. I probably should, but I don't. I have not blocked it. I've woven in the ends, but I usually wait to trim them until after I block it. And I finished it yesterday. About halfway through the day, I finished doing the sewn bind off at the bottom. So I was going to block it today after filming. I'm hoping that the sleeves get just a little bit, but not a lot. Because like looking at that, they fit. I would just like that little bit where they don't feel like they're bouncing up quite as much. But yeah, it fits comfortably. It's nice. It's going to be thick and warm. And I'm just going to keep telling myself that I'm going to love it. And I need to give it a chance. And if I don't love it, worst case scenario, later I just pull it all out and use it for something else. But at the very least, I did do what my goal was, and I completed a garment this year using some of my hand-spun yarn. Yeah. I was really looking forward to this as a full-length sweater, and I did realize decently early on that it would not be able to be a full-length sweater, and I still made the choice to keep going. So I'm trying to tell myself that it was a good choice, but I definitely do have a little bit of back and forth as to whether or not it actually was a good choice. I guess only time will tell. If it really is really cold this winter, I might just be really happy to have this as just that extra little layer. Especially if when it blocks, I get just like that half an inch. But anyways, this is my finished. It was the only real adjustment I did to the G Street sweater is as soon as I ran out of this yarn. This one I don't think was actually a part of it, and I realized later, but it was just the collar up here and the bottom bind off. As soon as I ran out of my regular yarn, I did 3 rows of 1x1 rib and then a sewn bind off versus making it longer. I didn't make any adjustments to like the top. I didn't do any shaping or anything at the top. I don't remember if the pattern said to do any, because as soon as I hit the body, I stopped and did the arms, and then it was like, well, at that point I knew it was going to be a shrug, so I didn't really bother reading anything else on the body. I do want to still make that sweater pattern. I probably will just purchase some yarn for it instead of trying to do hand spun, or find some hand spun yarn that is, I intentionally am spinning enough of a certain one. We'll kind of see. Yeah, I really need to do some calculating and figuring out with my hand spun yarn before I try to make a big project again, or even a little project. I like spinning. I'm just apparently really bad at figuring out how much yarn I've spun. All right, I went ahead and put my hair back up and moved my projects around, and here we are. So I have 4 works in progress, 2 knitting, 1 crochet, 1 cross stitch. So grabbing the top bag here, this is a very simple project. It is using Muse 2320 yarn. This was from her Troop 2320 sock set or subscription from 2023, and this one was the color Muddy Waters. And I am just doing a simple pair of socks. I'm not doing them 2 at a time. I just have my 2 sets of magic loops held like this. So I'm not very far on them yet. I'm working on these for my husband. This is like maybe the second pair of socks I've ever made him. He normally doesn't really care about my handmade socks. That sounds mean. He doesn't like ask for any. He likes that I make them well enough, but he's not worried about getting some for himself. But last year he mentioned, it does get kind of cold. It might be nice to have some wool socks that I made to wear with his boots in the winter. And it was like, okay, you want wool socks for the winter? I'm okay with that. And then I just didn't really stress about it too much because I knew he wasn't going to wear them all summer. Well, we are now in September, so while it's not cold yet, it's like, okay, if I want him to have these socks before it gets cold, I should make them one of my next projects. I gave him a few yarn options from the stash, and these were the ones he picked. He wanted some that were neutral, but I don't exactly keep like a whole bunch of just neutral plain sock yarn around. I typically go very bright, fun colors for my sock yarn because, for one, nobody has to see it unless I want them to. And for two, why not? I'm going to be looking at it forever. But he wanted some very neutral ones, so these are the ones he picked. And I have done the 1x1 rib for 20 rounds, and I'm just getting started on the leg for each of them. I had been hoping to be a little bit farther. These took the place of the Musselburgh Hat as my travel project. I finished the Musselburgh Hat a week ago, and I had a couple of days where I did not have any time to work on my travel project while traveling, and so I just didn't get as much work done on these during the week as I'd hoped. I am hoping they will be done before I film again, but you never know. Life happens. But any which way, he's not like in a rush to get them. They're not like for birthday, Christmas, anniversary. Like, they're not for a special event where I have to hurry up and finish them. They're just for him to wear with his boots once it starts getting cold. So really the only deadline is the weather. So we're still good so far. The next work in progress project I have is using more Cascade Heritage yarn. So this is some yarn that I'm kind of repurposing. Let me make sure I don't lose. I normally have a stitch marker in the end of my crochet, but I don't today. So this is, I should say, Cascade Heritage. It's mostly Cascade Heritage. So I had a few balls here of Cascade Heritage in these shades of green. I'd had a couple other ones, but I used them for something else. But I had 5 shades at one point that were going to be used for a project as a way to commemorate test scores for some studying I did 2 years ago. And then calculating it all out, I realized it was not good. These test scores were not going to work for a project like this. We'll get into what I'm doing instead in a little bit, but I had already purchased the yarn, all of that, and so it was like, well, I'll find something for it eventually. Well, my mother visited for a little bit over the summer, and she borrowed one of my shawls when it would just get a little bit chilly, and she loved the yarn and said it was so soft, and it happened to have some of the other Cascade Heritage from these greens, and my mother likes greens and yellows and blues. And so it was like, well, there we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my mother a shawl using the rest of that yarn. And then I just threw in, this is all of one mini skein. I've got this one, and then this is some leftovers from a different advent calendar, just to kind of give it some color variation. And I was like, and I'll just use up all of it. This is not all of this green, this like citrus green. I got about halfway through the ball and was like, that is already getting pretty big. Maybe I should just cut it off now in the middle, because the middle is where you're going to get the most pooling of one color, of course. So having less of that one, it's going to kind of make it look more even with the others. And I'll just do that with the other colors as well, where when I've done enough of one of these, I'll just be like, wow, that looks like a lot. I'll just chop it off and be done. And then throw in these minis around the middle of everything. I'm thinking about saving this one for the end, just as like a little border, but it's going to be right by the dark colors, so we'll kind of see what I feel like doing with that. The original plan was to put the minis in between the big ones just to kind of break it up, but I don't know. We'll just kind of see. So yeah, this is just a simple triangle granny. It's not really a granny square, I guess a granny triangle shawl. I found a tutorial online that kind of reminded me how to start one, and I've just been going since then. And I'm just going to go until I've used up all the colors and it's a nice big shawl. My mom is not an overly large woman. Like, she's not very tall, not huge frame, anything like that. So it doesn't have to be gigantic, but I want it to be big enough that she can really just wrap up in it over the winter or the summer even, where it's like, hey, it got a little chilly and I need another layer. Let me just throw it on over. I want it to kind of be a wearable blanket, but not something that's going to make it so she can't move around. So that's where I'm going with this one. It's not very far, but also it's just a like granny cluster crochet project. So it's moving pretty quick. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. We will see. It was nice because my hands have been kind of cramping a lot. I think the hand spun sweater was more fatiguing to my hands than I expected. So having a crocheted project to kind of break it up, I think was really helping. And I mean, who knows? There's a couple other crochet projects that I do kind of want to do. We'll get into that later, but having this right now definitely gave my hands that different movement and time to feel like it was healing. And that, like, you can't underestimate the power of switching it up and resting the muscles in your hands if you want to keep doing things like this for a long time. All right, so the next project I will talk about is in my Knitted Niceties bag here. This is one you have seen before. It's moving along. I have not worked on it as much as I thought I would right at this point, but it's fingering weight knitting, which my hands were not really enjoying for a little bit, so it's part of why I focused a little bit more on crochet projects. But this is, I also don't really like showing it. I feel like you can't see it well right now. Anyways, this is my Anthology Throw. And it is using my 2024 Advent calendar from Ruby and Roses. This is actually my last Advent calendar from 2024 to use, which only leaves the Advent calendar that I keep trying to pretend does not exist. At some point, I need to make a plan for it. But for right now, we're just going to keep saying this is the last Advent calendar I need to work up, because I will start getting new Advent calendars soon. So, yay! On my last one. Anyways, so this is the Anthology Throw. The last time I showed it, it looks like I have done 4 colors since then. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the Anthology. It's kind of hard to show because I should not have tried to move my stitch marker right now. Sorry. It's kind of hard to show because it is a circular blanket and it is knitted in the round. And so, like, you just kind of see this big bag. I can't really do much to show you how pretty all these colors are. And there's definitely a little bit of, like, trust the process because I don't know entirely how big it is. I mean, I could probably climb inside a little bit. I could definitely throw it over the head of my 7-year-old. But I also don't know how it looks laid out, and there's no way for me to know unless I get who knows how much try-it-on tubing. It would have to be huge. So yeah, there's a lot of trust the process with this. I'm really enjoying the colors. I am a little bit ahead. I started out at the beginning of the year with the idea that I will do 2 colors a month. And we are now in September, and I should have 8 colors left. September, October, November, December. Yeah, so 8 colors left, and I have 6 colors left to do. I can't tell if this is, I think this is 2 colors in here, and 4 colors in here. So 6 colors left to do, so I'm just a little bit ahead, but not crazy ahead. I obviously don't want to give too much away because this is a paid for pattern, but there are different sections throughout it of like, do this many stitches for this long. You can kind of see like where the stripes are somewhat even for a while. That's a certain stitch count. I'm on the last stitch count, and in the pattern, it looks like she was on that last stitch count for 4 colors, and I'm going to be on it for 8. So I'm a little bit nervous about how that's going to look, but I'm hoping it looks good. Again, I'm just trying to trust the process. Most people who I saw did this blanket would change colors when she said she did and have a little bit of leftovers, but then eventually they'd catch up and they'd be running out of colors before she said she changed colors. And so I was like, nope, I'm just going to run right through all of them and use all of every color, and I'm going to have no leftovers from this blanket. And I never caught up. Like, it never caught up with me where suddenly I'm now behind. Instead, I just stayed ahead the whole time. So I'm not sure if it's this advent calendar, if it's the way I knit, and maybe I did something fundamentally wrong that I'm not going to discover until I open it. And that is the answer I really don't want to consider being a possibility. But any which way, I am working on it. I have not done a lot of work on it any work on it in a week or so. But since I have shown it like 4 colors ago, it felt worth it to show it again. I'm not sure if I will show it again before I finish it. We'll see how much work I get done on it in the next little while. There's definitely a part of me that would like to finish it this month, but we will see. I mean, looking at my other projects, we'll see. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more when I talk project planning and considerations. The last work in progress I have is a cross stitch. So, when I talked earlier about the yarns from my mother's shawl, where it was for a project for for my test scores. So, if you have not been around for a little while, 2 years ago, I was finishing school and studying to take my BCBA exam. I did pass, and while I was doing it, one of the things that just kind of kept me going is partway through, I was getting burnt out. I was stressed, but I also felt like if I stopped studying, I would never pass the exam. And so I started recording my test scores in this notebook. And there was 2 different main sets of things that I was using for little mini tests to study from. And I wrote all of them in, and the idea was to basically do like a temperature blanket. And I did do one using half of the test scores because I realized there were like 2,000 tests. And so it was more than 2,000 tests. But I maybe one day I'll actually stop and count how many tests completely. But it was a lot. And so I realized I couldn't fit them all into one blanket or shawl or anything like that. And so the idea was I would split them in and do 2. When I was calculating out the test scores on the second one, I realized that no matter what I did, I thought about turning it into more of like a shawl instead of a blanket. And it was finally determined it would have to be like 11 feet long based on how many tests I had. And so I decided that I'm not going to bother doing it with yarn this time, and started thinking about maybe doing it with cross stitch. And I really wanted to finish it before October of this year. I don't think I'm going to, based on how long it's taken me to get this far. But instead, I am putting all of them into a cross stitch grid. Now, I know you're not really going to be able to see what this is, but the reality is it's going to end up looking just kind of like an abstract art. So this particular set of tests, I took 64. I counted them all up, and it came down to I could do a 28 by 38 grid. I thought about doing one like little X in the cross stitch per test, but then I figured that would be really, really small, really, really finicky. So instead, I am doing a 2 by 2 square for each test score. And I have my little range, everything has a color, and I have just started working through it. And I am currently on row 6 of 38. And when I started thinking about doing this, my calculations were in order to finish by the deadline I wanted in October, which would be my 2-year anniversary of passing the test, which I mean, most people probably don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about being a BCBA, but every 2 years I have to recertify. So finishing this before my recertification date comes up would be kind of fun. But I would have to get 8 rows every week. So that's 8. I don't think I actually did the math, but 8 times 28. So that's like over 200 test scores every week cross-stitched in. It's not impossible, but I would have to really, really focus hard, put a lot of work into it, and possibly make this the only thing I'm working on in order to finish it by the exact date in October that would be my recertification day. So I just decided, you know what, it doesn't matter that I'm not going to finish it before that date. I'm just going to work on it, and I'm going to try to work on it a little bit at a time, and I'm still glad that I started it before I hit my 2 years, because I feel like if I didn't, I would just never do it. And this is... I mean, anybody that's ever had to do a huge test, especially going back to school, doing so much studying to pass a 4-hour exam to do my job and everything, like it was a huge amount of stress. It was a huge amount of everything. And the first time pass rate when I took the test was only like 68% of people pass on their first try, which is not a small percentage, but it was still one of those where it was just enough of a margin of error that I was terrified. It was a hugely stressful moment, and it was a decent sized accomplishment. And so I want to have this thing that just kind of memorializes every test that I did to study for this. Like, the fact that I took over 2,000 practice tests over about a year, like, that's a lot. And maybe it was insane, but it also, it paid off, and maybe I could just be like, I have the job. It paid off. That memorializes it. But it's, I mean, look at what I do. We're makers here, so we make something to show what we did. It's not just, well, of course I did it. I had the job. I passed the test. I know for a lot of people that's what it is, but part of what kept me going along the way was, I'm going to keep these test scores and I'm going to turn them into art. And so there's that part of me that's like, I have to turn them into art. That was a part of the process. That's part of what kept me going. And I feel like having this piece of art that I can hang next to my desk at work, it's going to be one more reminder of why I got to keep going. Like, I have to keep going because of how far I've come. Don't, like, maybe today is bad, but look at what you already got through, and don't pretend you can't do this. And it's the art that I was going to make with this was part of what kept me going at that time, and I feel like that means that it needs to be in the world. Even if that doesn't entirely make sense to everyone else, it makes sense to me, so I kind of have to roll with it. All right, so what I have next is just a little bit of kind of project planning. I feel like I need to kind of make a plan for the rest of this year. We're almost into the last quarter of the year, and I've done a lot of things this year to kind of focus on buying less yarn and really using what I have. And I've done a bingo card to kind of keep myself focused on that. I will probably do another video, like at the end of the year, like breaking down what I made, what was successful, what was not successful. And I may or may not do another bingo card next year. I think if I do another bingo card next year, I may branch out a little bit and have it not all knit and crochet projects. But I do like that I have focused so much on using what I've had this year. I have, of course, purchased yarn. In a little bit when we talk about life, we'll even talk about how I purchased yarn yesterday. And like, some of what I have right here is newly purchased yarn. I don't think purchasing yarn is in and of itself a bad thing. I just have so much that I want to make sure gets the love it needs. And I do feel like making sure that I was using my advent calendars was I think that was such a smart idea for me. I'm already trying to think of what I'm going to do with advent calendars this year. I don't want to have a distinct plan for them until I've seen what they look like, but I want to have the idea that I am going to use them. I'm not going to let them just sit there and build up. and things like that. So I have a few long-term ideas, but also trying to figure out what I want to accomplish before I finish out the year. So I do have a few more things on the bingo card and some things that are not on the bingo card, because my bingo card only had items on it that were like it to be on the qualify on the bingo card. It needed to have a project that had yarn purchased before 2025. So like my Yorkshire crochet along was on there because it was an advent calendar. So even though I purchased the joining yarn, it was still using yarn from 2024 because I needed to purchase the yarn in order to finish it. But that was not like the whole point of it. So I do have a couple of projects that I'm thinking about doing, trying to figure out what to make a focus, because normally I have 3 projects going at a time. And I mean, I showed you 4 works in progress, and I do have like a scrap project that's already going. Like, technically speaking, I could be full. But I finished enough projects this week that it feels like I have room for one more. So I'm trying to kind of plan and figure out what I'm doing. So I do have the socks for my husband that are filling my travel project. And then I usually have 2 bigger projects. One that I keep upstairs in my house, one that I keep downstairs. That way it's not one of those where I'm like sitting down at the couch to watch something downstairs and then realize, ugh, my project is upstairs. Or getting ready to sit down at the end of the day in my room and I'm like, ugh, my project is downstairs. I have one for each and they each get their own time of the day to work on them. So my mother's shawl is going to be one of those projects. For the other one, I could just keep working on my Anthology Throw or make my cross stitch fit into that time. And both make sense, and I may just kind of do that for the next week rather than starting another one and really give myself time to think about it. But I also have 2 other projects that I'm considering starting. So one is a kit that I got. This is on the bingo card. And it is to make the, what is it? Knits and, that's the Bible hat, I think. It's from Donna Smith Designs. I don't actually see a name on here. That is so weird. It's got to be on here somewhere. Anyways, I bought a kit to make this at my local yarn shop like 2 years ago. And it is a pattern to make a hat. You're not going to see that picture, but it's the one where it's got the little sheep on it. And the kit that I purchased uses purple and tan as the non-sheep colors. I got it thinking it was so cute and that I really wanted to make it, and I'd seen the pattern so many times, and look, here's the pattern and a kit, and isn't that just the best way to do it? And I know I probably won't wear it, but my youngest wears hats to school all through the winter, and purple is one of her favorite colors, so I figured I would make that for her this year. It is color work, which I don't particularly like to do, and it is also a small project, which would be nice to just get one more thing knocked off of my bingo card, which that hat in particular was not on the bingo card. It was just a color work project, and that is what I chose for it. And then it's similar to making socks for my husband. Getting it done before it's cold is not a bad idea. And that kind of leads into the other project that I kind of want to start. And this is just kind of, it would really be a dopamine project. Like, let's be real. I don't need it right now. It's not anything on my bingo card. It's not using any yarn purchased in 2020, like before 2025. I actually just got it in the mail the other day. But I really want to do it. So this is using yarn from Little Wolf Knits, and it is from her the Summer Vacation Italia collection, and it is on her schooner. Nope, that's not the right label. Yeah, her schooner base, which is is it boucle? I don't know, the nice little texture yarn. And this one is in the color Strada. I cannot remember exactly if I'm pronouncing that right. I saw it online and I loved it, and I wanted to do one of her sweater patterns that I cannot remember what the name of the pattern I'm going to do is yet. I've already purchased, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it's using boucle yarn and a DK weight yarn. and I picked her DK weight. It's her 420 base, and this is the color Skinny Dipping. And so the main part of the sweater will be this, and then the ribbing will be this. And I'm so in love, and it looks like it's going to be the softest, most cozy sweater. And it's not cold here yet, but I'm like, yes, but it will be. Shouldn't I get this started before it is? And I mean, there's no reason why a person should not be allowed to start a project just because they want to start a project. But I do have that little bit of like, yeah, but should I start this right now, or should I wait and start it later? And I don't know, which is why I may put off making that decision for a week. And just tell myself, okay, like if partway through the week I absolutely desperately know which one of these I want to start, I'll just start it. And if I don't, then that's fine too. Like I can work on the ones that I already have, give myself a week, and worst case scenario, I'm looking at this brand new yarn and starting this project just because I want to, and just doing it. And is that really the end of the world? And I'm personally going with the answer is no. Some people may disagree, but I'm going with the answer is no. And then I am also doing a little bit of other project planning, simply because as we're getting into the last quarter of the year, last year I sort of did Vlogmas. I feel like I'm not really much of a vlogger. In my job, I can't like film in the building. I don't typically film my kids, my husband, like they're not really a part of the filming process for any of this. So doing like full daily vlogs, it's definitely not the same for me. But I did have a lot of advent calendars, and so I did do kind of Vlogmas focused on the advent calendars. And I am thinking of doing a little bit of Vlogtober as well, because I am going to be getting an advent calendar for October. I do semi have a plan for what I'm going to do with it. I try not to be fully invested in what I'm going to do with each advent calendar until I see it. And I'm not somebody who opens them and tries to complete an advent project during the advent season with them. I like to know what the colors are going to be and see how they go and make sure they're going to work for the project I want them to be. So I am kind of thinking I might do a little bit of a Vlogtober. Again, you would not be following me around for everything because I don't typically vlog, but I would be showing my advent, a little bit of what I do, even if it's, just going down and getting my pumpkin spice latte occasionally. October is 100% my favorite, and I do have a couple of projects where I'm like, maybe I should do this as a part of October, and if I'm thinking about doing that, do I have time for a big sweater? And maybe, because if I start it now, it could be mostly done by then. You never know. So yeah, I'm trying to plan out what I am doing right now, what I am doing in a month, what I am doing in 2 months, and what I'm doing in 3 months. Because in order to finish all my bingo things, I do need to plan. And if I want to throw in other fun stuff for Vlogtober and Vlogmas, it may be September, but I need to make sure that I'm going to be able to finish everything that I wanted to finish on my bingo card. And I may or may not finish it by the end of this year, but I'm going to be close enough that I kind of feel like I want to try to finish it by the end of this year. So, I mean, making my project plans is really just a lot of that. Do I pick a practical project, or do I just follow what I want to do? I mean, this is supposed to be fun. So following what I want to do, at least occasionally, should be a part of the project process. And that is part of why I'm not sure if I want to do a bingo card again next year, because while it kept me focused on using yarn that I already had so far this year, is it taking me away from other projects that I want to do because, well, they don't fit within the bingo card? And I genuinely don't know, but I do want to think about it while I decide, like, okay, so what's the plan for next year? But also, like, what's the plan for next week? Like, I'm thinking about somehow both and neither at the same time, and I think that's why it's hard to make a decision as to what project I want to work on right now, is because I'm a little lost in the over-planning process, and maybe I just need to pick up the needles and work on a project and not worry about the rest of it for a little bit. All right, so that is all that I have to do with projects, what I'm making, what I've made, what I'm thinking about making. When it comes down to life stuff, I always feel like I don't really have a lot of exciting stuff, but we did actually do a few things over the last couple of weeks. So last weekend we went to the zoo. The Boise Zoo has a new red panda enclosure that they opened up over the summer. And so we got to go and see the red pandas crawling around, and it was, I know there's good and bad things to zoos, but I love a zoo. I love going and seeing the animals, and I have a small child who also loves going and seeing the animals. Then we also did stop by the Boise Mall just to do some little fun shopping. Nothing super exciting with that. And then I did take at least one day over the long Labor Day weekend to just sit around the house and be a bum, work on my projects, not worry about anything else. And that was so wonderful. I was so proud of myself with my projects where I managed to finish both the Musselburgh and the Yorkshire Crochet Along before September 1st, which was nice, because there was just that part of me that was so close. I'm like, I'm going to push and leave these two projects in August. I'm not taking them with me into September. And, I mean, does it really matter? No. But it kind of felt nice in that moment to be able to do that. This weekend, we haven't done a ton, but Friday and Saturday was the Idaho Fiber Festival. I did not realize it was coming up. I went last year as well, and it was tiny last year. It was like one little room at a hotel with about 3 vendors. And I think this year they had maybe 6 or 7 vendors, so it's like twice the size. I'm not sure how long they can continue to grow at that rate, but it was still really nice to see it growing over the year. And I hope that it keeps growing. I do think that their social media could use a big up. Over the last 3-ish years that I have heard of it, I looked at their Instagram and they've done like 14 posts over 3 years. So I definitely think they could up their social media presence. We are Idaho, so I'm not sure that it will ever be like, it's not going to compete with Rhinebeck. I'm not sure it's going to be something like that, but we are in like the state capital of Idaho. So it could be decently sized. Boise is a pretty big area. I'm fairly certain there's a whole bunch of us here who are doing our fiber arts. And they could, I think they could grow a little bit, even if it's not necessarily ever competing with the major fiber festivals, but you never know. So yeah, I definitely think that they could advertise better, but it was still so nice to go and just chat with the various vendors. I did get a little bit of yarn. I don't have it here with me. I haven't been purchasing as much yarn over the last year, and I just kind of stopped worrying about showing acquisitions because, for one, I'm trying not to have as many acquisitions, but also there is such an overconsumption problem in the world that it was just, I don't know. I don't know that I need to glorify the buying more yarn every time, even when it is so pretty. The only things, I got 3 things of yarn, one of which I am considering doing as a part of October, because Vlogtober is, of course, the option, but also October is my birthday. Maybe that's part of why I love Halloween so much. And one of the yarns I got, I just absolutely loved the colors, and then the name was Born in the 80s, which I was born in 82. So it was like, ooh, maybe that will be this year's birthday-themed yarn / socks that I do. Last year I had some yarn that was just named October. The year before that I had some self-striping that was based on my zodiac sign. So it's like, maybe this year I will do that yarn as my birthday socks, and do these bright neon colored ones that are born in the 80s. And then I got 2 other ones that were sock sets. One that it looked like it said something like the color was something like bottom of the dye pot or something. So it looked like it was one of those random combos of leftover dyes they had, which, true or not, it's gorgeous. And then the other one, I was debating between two, and there was one I just absolutely loved, and I grabbed it, and I was like, nope, this is the one I'm going with. And I brought it home, and I didn't even look at the color until I got home. I recognized the name of the dyer, but I figured it was just because I'd seen them online a few times recently. When I saw the name when I got home, I'm 99% sure I purchased that yarn and made a pair of socks with it last year. It was not a sock set then, but I dug through my leftovers and I found some leftovers, and I think it's the same color. So that does explain why I was drawn to it if I loved the color enough to buy it twice. So I don't know what I'm going to do with either of them. The original thought was just sock sets, so probably socks. But the one that I have previously made socks out of, it is a sock set with 2 minis. So I am tempted to see if I can find a shawl pattern with 2 minis. I'm actually really bad at using Ravelry. When I've tried to look for like shawl patterns using sock sets, it gives me shawls, but not like with my yarn criteria. So if anybody has any tips for how to get Ravelry to work a little bit better that way, or any other way, any other resources for finding more patterns to use sock sets for that are not socks. I love making socks, but my sock bin is overflowing. So I don't think I need all of the socks that I make to be for me right now, or all the sock sets to be socks. I don't wear that many hats, and I know you can make shawls with like the one skein, and I've seen a few that are a good sock set. But usually it's like 1 sock, 1 mini, or like 1 main, 1 mini for those shawls. And I'd love to find a variation that uses like a main color and a few minis, because I do have a few sock sets that have like 2 or 3 minis with them. So yeah, if you have any great ideas or resources for that, please share it below. I would love the help on that. And then this morning I haven't done anything really exciting. I worked on my cross stitch. I worked on my husband's socks a little bit. Really hoping I have enough spare yarn from that. I've done a couple this year where I finished a pair of socks for me and then used some of the leftovers to make a pair of socks for my youngest. And I am really hoping that I have enough left over for making my husband's socks to make her a coordinating pair with her dad as well. Because she loves having the twinsies socks with me, and I would love for her to have that with her dad as well. So yeah, I've just done a little bit of working on stuff here and there. Nothing super fancy today. I will block my shrug later today. I'm doing laundry. And later today, well, I guess technically he's already watching football today. It is Sunday when I'm recording, and my husband is a 49ers fan. So later today my house will be loud, most likely, because they are playing this afternoon. And whether the game is going good or bad, he is a passionate fan. So I will hear whatever is happening in the game whenever it happens. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Please share your patterns for sock sets below. Links are great. Even just telling you the names is also great. And also kind of tell me what you think about the idea of me doing Vlogtober. I've got a couple of ideas of specific projects that I could bring into it. And maybe do even a little bit of like baking, not excessively. I'm not looking at turning this into like a baking tutorial thing. I feel like anytime people do crafts and baking, they always end up going just to the baking eventually, and that's not what I'm interested in. But I love fall. I'm really excited about the idea of doing like pumpkin loaves and things like that again. I even did some brown butter this morning so I can make brown butter snickerdoodles later. So yeah, let me know if you are interested in seeing that. Obviously, if you all tell me no, I may do it anyways. But we'll kind of see. And yeah, that's all that I have. I've already started to really ramble, so it's definitely time to end the video. Thank you all for coming. And until we talk again, have a very happy making.